basically a Democrat from like 15 years ago when it comes to social issues.
So you don't think that he's conservative enough for you?
Oh, definitely. Nowhere close, no.
He's not xenophobic enough for you?
No, he's trying to import a bunch of H-1Bs. Are you kidding?
Right. Oh.
She's a Canadian. She's an immigrant to the United States. I kid you not. Yeah, it turns out she works for Rebel News. Sarah Stock. Formerly Ontario-based Canadian-American Sarah Stock joined Rebel News in 2022, where she worked behind the scenes before reporting on the streets of Toronto in 2024. I often have really shitty news, and this is actually, it's good news, but it's also going to be horrifying, so content warning, I will be talking about residential schools, but I do have good news. I never have good news, so here's some good news.
Good news, everyone.
Here's the good news. The far-right political parties, a party in Canada, is completely in disarray and is collapsing in free fall. It's splintering, and it's now going to form a whole bunch of weirder and stranger and more racist factions, which is wonderful. You love to see it. You don't like the conservatives all kind of working together or joining together, or even different fractions of the right all banding together, especially when they join up with the really extreme kind of neo-Nazi, let's do the whole supremacy of the Anglo-Saxon race style stuff. You want them to be fighting each other. Now, behind the scenes, apparently, I have some insiders who work in the politique, and they're saying behind the scenes, shit is terrible. Apparently, in the parliament, all the conservatives just hate each other, and they're at each other's throats, and the super racist ones don't get along with the, say, conservative ones who are second generation or first generation immigrants. And obviously that's kind of tough, right? If you happen to be a non-white person sitting across the table from a white person who's like, yeah, we hate immigrants and we're all about the superiority of the white race, and then you're like, well, no, I just wanted lower taxes and not to allow the gay indoctrination in schools, and then they're like, well, yes, no, we're for that. We're against the gay indoctrination in schools for sure. We hate gender ideology. All right, we're on board. And also the superiority. Stop that part. Stop that part. Start the Nazi thing. You keep doing the Nazi thing. Well, it turns out the Nazi thing was a breaking point for a lot of the politicians here in British Columbia anyway. This politician specifically is a horrifying monster, Dallas Brody. If you didn't hear about her, that's good. You probably won't hear about her for a while until she starts her own political party, but she's a residential school denialist, and she's actually been promoting and pumping a lot of residential school denial as an elected official in Canada, which is gross and horrifying, but I thought things just couldn't get any worse, as if there is no bar, no racism too terrible for them to not, really go hardcore. Now, if you're wondering about the whole entire situation regarding residential schools in Canada, and, a couple of years ago, there was the mass discovery of a bunch of unmarked graves using ground-penetrating radar, which made international headlines. That was the first time a lot of Canadians actually even knew or learned about how horrifying the residential schools were, and it caused a very, very big international outrage. This resulted in a lot of different things. Unfortunately, not a lot of material changes, and subsequently, they've actually started to reduce the amount of money that is being given to Indigenous communities to start doing research and investigations into the history of the schools. Now, a couple parts to this. This was such fertile ground for white supremacists like Lauren Chen, Lauren Southern, Dallas Brody, etc., to say that the entire thing was a scam. That, like, where are the bodies? We demand to see the children's bones. Show us the bones. Why haven't you dug up the bones? What's going on? Which, just on its surface, is fucked up, and I can explain why right away. It was actually the discovery of a child's rib cage that started the entire investigation in the first place in the Kamloops school. That was the start. They found children's bones, which you probably shouldn't find outside of schools or churches, and then they were like, all right, well, now we're going to do an investigation into this. That's what led to the use of ground-penetrating radar. Now, it's not as if there hasn't been the excavation and or discovery of full child-sized skeletons. There have been. There are news reports you can see that come out of schools, residential schools in Saskatchewan, for example, where they have found, again, full and exhumed full child-sized skeletons. So there are bones. The problem is there's no amount of bones that will ever be enough for these monsters. This was one of the problems I had when I was actually a couple of years ago debating Lauren Southern and eventually Destiny on this topic. I didn't know that they were having an affair the whole time, and that might have played into why both of them were teaming up so aggressively, a white supremacist and a so-called liberal to take down the evil Canadian who's trying to bring attention to the residential school system in Canada. But one way or another, that they were doing kind of, it's like the God of gaps for you know, people who want to keep telling you that the Bible's literal and that evolution isn't real and that, you know, there's no such thing as a fossil record. And then you're like, well, here actually is a pretty demonstrable series that's pretty amazing, actually, that we can actually chart the evolution of our own species this well. And they're like, aha, but I have found yet another gap that you don't have an evolutionary corollary for. And you're like, well, yeah, but you're not actually disproving the theory itself. You're just trying to poke holes in the fact that we don't have 100% every single fossil that can connect every single different species and animal to one another. But that doesn't disprove this theory. In fact, it looks elegant and beautiful when you see it laid out before you. This is the opposite of that. It's actually horrifying and monstrous the more you see the truth of the residential schools. But all that notwithstanding, what's also supremely fucked up about this topic is that there are thousands upon thousands of survivors who are alive today. The last residential school in Canada closed in 1997, so it's not as if a lot of the people who went through this process aren't still around. In fact, we have thousands of testimonies that were taken from the survivors of the residential school system during the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to learn more details about what happened. There's been thorough investigations into the history of the residential schools in Canada, including using records from the churches themselves, yes, the Catholic churches, the RCMP, using police records, correlating that with news reports. I have clips from a really good documentary I highly recommend every single one of you check out. It's called Sugarcane. It was the best and most powerful film I saw this year. I think it came out last year, but either way, it just got nominated for the Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature. It lost to No Other Land, another incredible film. If you saw No Other Land, please take the time to watch Sugarcane. It's incredible. It not only humanizes a lot of the stories surrounding Indigenous people in the residential schools, but it also shows you the investigations and how in-depth they are into a lot of the most fucked up stuff that happened during the residential schools. And one of the biggest revelations that a lot of people don't actually know about, and again, content warning because the stuff is a little bit dark, is the use of baby incinerators. They had incinerators at residential schools to dispose of children. And that was one of the things that is, I think, pretty supremely horrifying, you know, up there with some of the other pretty monstrous genocides that you've probably heard of at one point or another. And the discovery of that and discussions of that are something that is obviously a horrifying part of Canadian history, one that, you know, they try not to discuss or talk about, but it also puts into light, and the reason I'm really trying to explain how bad all of this is to have an elected politician like this, you know, start to promote this kind of shit, or try to promote this kind of shit.
Well, I guess there's a person in our party who's Indigenous, and she, you know, was super angry and went to town and joined the NDP to call me out. And then and some people in our party, we've actually brought in some people who, I'm just going to say this, I think belong in the NDP. You know that if we don't have truth, not his truth, her truth, oh, my grandmother's truth, or, you know, this whole thing about my truth and your truth, oh, my truth. This stuff has to stop. But, you know, I've had people, I guess there's a person in our party who's Indigenous, and she, you know, was super angry and went to town and joined the NDP to call me out. And then and some people in our party, we've actually brought in some people who, I'm just going to say this, I think belong in the NDP. You know.
Anyways, she started doubling down, tripling down, all that kind of stuff. Like I said, she looks like a more evil Julia Louis-Dreyfus. So she starts doing a whole bunch of residential school denial, says the number of confirmed child burials at former Kamloops Indian residential school site is zero. No one should be afraid to tell the truth. Not lawyers, the governing bodies, or anyone else really wants to stick to this. It's kind of like, this is important to me. Everyone should know that I need to see children's bones. It's a part of who I am. So then the BC Conservative leader kicks her out of the caucus for mocking residential school testimony. I did not see this coming because, you know, the Mr. Burns-esque and the rest of his party, it's filled with racists. I was wondering how so many racists got elected into this party, and a lot of them got elected in communities that are not overwhelmingly white, by the way. And unfortunately, a lot of it had to do with a very effective strategy of consistently vilifying LGBTQ plus people, talking about how there is a gay agenda coming for your children, there's a queer agenda coming for your there's gender ideology being pushed upon your kids, and only the conservatives or the far right party are going to be able to stop it. And for a lot of communities, even communities of color who are first or second generation immigrants, that message was resonating enough to have some white supremacists get voted into communities that were not predominantly white, which is also very, very fucked up. The BC Conservative Party removed MLA Dallas Brody from its caucus, prompting at least 2 defections from within its ranks, reducing its standing in the BC legislature. Leader John Rustad said the ejection was a result of Brody's recent appearance on a podcast where she said she's using a mocking childlike voice to belittle testimony from former residential school students, saying things like, quote, "My grandmother's truth, my truth, your truth," in a child whining voice. The privilege and platform of being a conservative comes with the expectation and responsibility to do the right thing. Mocking former residential school students giving testimony, including testimony about a child's sex abuse by pedophiles, is beyond the pale. So we have a bar. I didn't know there was a bar, but apparently it has been set. There is a bar. This is too far, and she has been kicked out of the Conservative Party. Rustad said the decisions to remove Brody was not based on earlier statements surrounding the number of bodies found in Kamloops Indian School. So the bar has been lowered. It's not earlier that she was actually calling into question how many bodies there were and wanting to see children's bones. That's okay. Apparently that is allowed. But if you just go one step further and double down on that using the "I'm going to mock the survivors of genocide" voice, that was the bar. So this was not the bar, but the bar has been set here now. So we have new bar. An existing MLA uses her position of authority to mock testimony of survivors of abuse, including child sex abuse. So again, maybe we should lower both bars down here, because that bar is actually a little bit lower than the bar that was before. But yes, so if you go one step further and you actually start mocking people who were as children sexually abused, then and only then shall you be reprimanded. As a result of her decision to publicly mock and belittle testimony from former residential school students, including mimicking individuals recounting stories of abuse, including child sex abuse, MLA Brody is not welcome to return to her Conservative Party of BC caucus. So you can do genocide denial. You can say, "Where are the bodies? I want to see children's bones." You can also say, "I double down on my take." But the second you start doing impersonations of the survivors of child sexual abuse, and that's on camera, and you're caught, and that camera video gets published, that's the bar. We have found the conservative. At that point, conservatives are like, okay, well, there you did bad. But you know what's even wilder about this story is that a whole bunch of other people dropped out because apparently they got mad. The whole thing was an example of wokeism gone wild. They're like, how dare you? How dare you kick her out for mocking someone who was raped as a child? We have a right to do that. This is cancel culture, and it's gone too far. We are standing up for our right to mock the survivors of child rape, and we're starting our own political party. We're going to break away from the Conservative Party to start our own political party where cancel culture and wokeness will not reign anymore. I kid you not. This is all Canada, by the way. When you think about Canada as being the friendly place, here's what's going down. Jokes aside, with the departure of several problematic MLAs, the Conservative Party BC has an opportunity to be much more serious, focused, and appealing. No, I destroy them all, I say. Allow them to splinter, fraction, and I want a whole bunch of random little baby parties that have no actual potential power, and they can all just sit in their weird racist corners. So the Conservatives can continue to cancel themselves and be strange. BC Conservatives lose 3 MLAs in a disastrous day, with one saying he'll form a new caucus. Jordan Keeley says he's lost faith in the opposition leader. How dare you do this to us? Also, he wants me to. All right. The Conservatives lost 3 caucus members in a disastrous day. Opposition social development critic Tara Armstrong was the latest to quit, saying on social media the leader has abandoned the truth and his moral compass in a quest for power. AKA, again, he was totally fine with her doing residential school denialism. He was totally fine with her posting publicly that she needed to see the bodies of dead children, by the way, and their bones. That's all totally fine. It was fine with her stating publicly that she does not back down from that take. That was fine as well. It was when video leaked of her going on a podcast where she was literally mocking firsthand the survivors of rape. At that point, he was like, oh, all right, we've gone too far. She's out of the caucus. And then these two individuals were like, whoa, what? You kicked her out for that? That? Who among us could not be next? We're leaving, and we're forming our own political party. So they're doing that now. Armstrong, who represents Colonial Lake Country Coldstream, says this was a cowardly decision to stab her in the back, and it reveals just how corrupt he's become. So corrupt of you to kick someone out for fucking the survivor of rape. He's now a party in crisis, which is beautiful. There's an outright rebellion on the right, well, the far right flank, which is also beautiful. Again, keep doing this. The threat to the powerful vested interest in the multi-billion-dollar reconciliation industry. Oh yeah, she, the super supreme racist made a statement where she was like, this is all happening because of, what is it, rich minorities. Like, she basically tried to frame it as if indigenous survivors of sexual abuse and genocide are actually rich and powerful, and they're the ones that control Canadian politics. Again, I gotta find it because the quote is when, like, it's one of those seeing is believing kind of things. Here it is. I spoke the truth because it matters. I will never back down from it. It is an indisputable fact that the number of bodies discovered at Kamloops is 0. The truth is a threat to powerful vested interest in the multi-billion-dollar reconciliation industry. Politicians like David Eby and John Rustad are willing to sell off British Columbia's wealth and power, transferring it from the public to an elite racial minority. Again, wrap your head around this. I don't even know if Alex Jones would be this brazen to be like, so you're saying that the indigenous survivors of their own colonization and genocide are actually an elite racial minority who are making up their own abuse and rape stories to be able to take money from the public? Make this make sense. Also, how are you still an elected politician? She could have been kicked out of the party, but she's still like, she hasn't been, I don't know, primaried. They haven't said we need something else. Like, she's still literally an elected politician. Enriching opportunistic lawyers, consultants, and chiefs along the way. We will stop them. We will fight for a British Columbia that serves us all, and we will do it by speaking one truth at a time. Join me in the fight for truth and the future of all British Columbians. Now, this is some pretty extreme racism, I'll grant you. And I gotta be honest with you, this is one of the reasons that so many of the pundits in America, a completely separate country, turn out to be Canadian. Including, I kid you not, the one that we saw on yesterday's Jubilee debate against Sam Seder, the white neo-Nazi. Yes, the Aryan princess, the one who was like, Trump's actually more like a Democrat to me. He's like, Trump's a Democrat to you? Yeah, no, we need to be tougher on immigration. We need to be hardcore. Immigrants are evil. Oh, also, the superiority of the Anglo-Western society. I think that's pretty obvious. And then, you know, where it got to that point where Sam Seder was sitting there and he's like, I'm going to be honest with you. We're never going to disagree. We're never going to agree on really anything related to this. We're just completely like diametrically opposed in our viewpoints on this topic. She's a Canadian immigrant. Yeah, it's a wild world we live in. This woman.
Identity.
White. So your argument is that
has been the dominant culture.
Just to be
and
clear,
we're not letting people assimilate to that. We're saying you should keep your culture, and this is why our culture's so divided.
Your argument is that Trump is good for those who want a dominant white Europe.
Oh, this was amazing timing. Okay. First off, thank you so much to the Majority Report. I love you all, every single one of you. Hey, can you go to twitch.tv/the Majority Report, give them a follow back. But also, if you haven't already, check out Steve Boots. He rated earlier. Great content producer. All of you should take your time to realize. I'm sure all of you are excited and thrilled, and myself as well, at how well Father Sam has done in this. Right, no longer Daddy Sam or Uncle Sam. He's Father Sam now, right? He's ascended into an almost spiritual realm in his performance on Jubilee, single-handedly redeeming the entire existence of Jubilee in its totality. I'm not saying that they're not evil and terrible. They are, but not every single minute and second of Jubilee has been a waste, thanks to, again, Sam Seder engaging with a lot of these people. But some of them, they didn't have any interest whatsoever in having a conversation. They were there to harvest and mine clips from Sam. They failed horrifically at it, and embarrass themselves, to the point that even conservatives and right-wingers internationally thought that Sam Seder was the conservative. I guess because, again, they were associating, well, he's older, he's a little more traditionally dressed, more of a classical haircut, glasses, beard. He must be the conservative, right? And then I guess they were assuming the woke liberals were younger, perhaps a little bit more adventurous in their haircuts and the way they were presenting themselves. But no. In fact, Sam was the leftist in the equation. He was just debating a lot of younger people. But then along came, I think it's only a matter of time when you're dealing with either conservative supporters, Trump supporters, basically when you get into the right-wing inner circle, there's probably going to be a couple Nazis in there. Now, the problem with having one Nazi at the dinner table is that unless you kick the Nazi out and completely in totality reject everything that they believe, then you're just at a dinner table with Nazis, right? Like, one Nazi at the table, if they're allowed to be there, means it's an entire table of Nazis. And so that's one of the problems when you got a party that often finds itself with a couple Nazis in there. And in this case, here is, again, the Nazi of the day.
European culture.
I mean, that is what America is. It's rooted in European identity and Christian values. That's what it has been. Would you really disagree with that? What is it then, if that's not the identity of America?
Well, I think the identity of
For the
America...
majority of time, America's been a country. You don't think that's been the identity?
Well, actually, no. I think actually the identity of America has been, for better or for worse, a melting pot in that regard.
Yeah, maybe since like the 1960s. Even then, even we had this idea of a melting pot literally means assimilation too. It means melting. It means you're assimilating to the dominant culture. Is that not what melting means?
No, it doesn't
mean
mean
instead we're saying there's something wrong with xenophobia.
Dominant culture. No. I mean, look, I got to be honest with you. You and I have a fundamental disagreement. We will never see eye to eye on this. It's a choice. And I think what you're expressing, though, is really what the Trump movement at its heart is about. And I think that's problematic.
I disagree. I don't think Trump's anywhere close to being a Christian nationalist. That's ridiculous. Trump's basically a Democrat from 15 years ago when it comes to social issues.
So you don't think that he's conservative enough for you?
Oh, definitely. Nowhere close, no.
He's not xenophobic enough for you?
No, he's trying to import a bunch of H-1Bs. Are you kidding?
Right. Oh.
She's a Canadian. She's an immigrant to the United States. I kid you not. The fuck's she talking about? I was just like, oh God, wow, yet another, American neo-Nazi talking about, the superiority of Western civilization and how they have to basically oppress other races and all this other shit. Yeah, it turns out she works for fucking Rebel News. Sarah Stock. Formerly Ontario-based Canadian-American Sarah Stock joined Rebel News in 2022, where she worked behind the scenes before reporting on the streets of Toronto in 2024. Now, Sarah is located in Southern California, where she reports for Rebel part-time and studies political science. That's the big red flag right there. But goddamn, why does this keep happening? Lauren Southern, Lauren Chen, Steven Crowder, Jordan Peterson, you name it. The majority at some point of the entire American far-right political pundit class is going to be fucking Canadians. All complaining about immigration and fucking how there's not enough xenophobia and all this. You're immigrants. Do not realize you're all from a different country. Jesus Christ. No, but we're the good kind. The proper kind of immigrants. Come on. Yeah. White. What will Trump's first executive order be? Supporters want mass deportations of yourself? Do you need to be deported back to Canada? Do Trump supporters want to make Canada the 51st state? Oh, I see what's happening here. God damn it. New California law would allow polygamous marriages. Do LA voters support it? So, yeah, just keep in mind this is the reality. Even Ted Cruz is technically born in Canada. Wasn't he born? I used to say that all the time, and then someone's like, he was born in a U.S. military base. It counts. He's an American. It's American soil. He was born in Alberta in an American military base. So, that's why I was bringing up the fact that all of these hyper racists, like this politician just got kicked out. Yeah, the Canada is fucking full of them. Canada is filled with white supremacists and racists. And then eventually a lot of them start working, I guess, as YouTubers or podcasters or streamers. And then if things aren't working out or things are doing a little good, maybe they move on to America. And then they travel to America, and then they move there, and then they pretend that they're American and just act as if they are the only thing standing in the way between the complete collapse of Western civilization when they themselves are immigrants. You know, it's kind of like how an illegal immigrant to the United States is now probably one of the most powerful people, the de facto president of the U.S., Elon Musk. Yeah, he's not American. He was an illegal immigrant. That's wild. Christopher Rufo's wife, the man who basically propagated the whole CRT is being taught to your children in schools, that it's being, indoctrinating children to learn about how white people are evil, and so it turns babies into racists and all this stuff. That guy, he's married to an illegal immigrant. The guy who just spreads xenophobia all day. So many of the illegal immigrants are just immigrants themselves. Because again, yeah, unless you're indigenous or you're the descendant of people who were forcibly brought over as slaves, you're an immigrant or the descendant of immigrants. That's how the whole thing works. They're nations of immigrants. Canada and the United States. In some ways similar, but in some ways different. Same, but different. Even though it does seem like we seem to be battling and fighting each other on a regular basis. Before I move on to the next topic, I got permission from the director of Sugarcane to show you all some clips from it for all the people who are doing denialism. It's actually pretty incredible, the research that was shown in this documentary. Cannot recommend it enough. If you haven't seen the movie, nominated for an Academy Award, Best Documentary Feature. It didn't win, but it was, in my opinion, the most powerful film I saw this year. This is just a little bit of the research that is being done. Don't worry, this clip itself is not heavy. I'll tell you before we play the heavy clip. But this one is showing you the research. It does contain discussion of residential schools, genocide, torture, that kind of stuff. But it specifically talks about the research. They go through the records of the Catholic Church's own diaries, journals, entries, that kind of stuff. They go through the records of the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, their journals, records, and data, as well as stuff that had never been revealed to the public ever in its totality, to be able to piece together and find out what exactly happened to all the missing children.
The Indians, being nomadic by nature, wish to be free to come and go as they please. It's not surprising, therefore, that their children found the confinement, discipline of school hard to bear, and that consequently several of them ran away. One of these, a young boy, was found dead in the woods.
2 girls skipped out on Friday night. They were both drowned, and only one body has been recovered. Father Dunlop is very upset, but I feel certain that no blame can be attached to him or anyone at the school.
My uncle committed suicide at the school. They couldn't even get a coroner to look into what happened here. Like, why are they dying? Like, it's just another dead Indian, and who cares? Yeah. Lots of these were actually victims. Cyril Paul had committed suicide. Oliver Johnson committed suicide. That's me. I'm there.
Do this. We don't allow, civilians, if you will, to look at our files and potentially take things away. It's not something that we do. But, if not now, when?
We were bringing out the garbage from the kitchen, and we were told to stay away from the incinerator, and there was a shoebox, and the cover flew off, and inside this cover was a newborn baby.
Now, that first part is a clip taken from them doing research using the actual, the writing and journals of the Catholic schools themselves. So they were looking, and then they're cross-collaborating that with the RCMP reports from, back then that had never been released to the public for the first time ever.
She's seen the baby in a shoebox at the incinerator, but they don't do anything to follow up. These women are no longer alive. They couldn't live with what they've been through.
Okay, Charlene, there is a file called O'Connor Adoption Records. I never got no baby back, but I asked father, well, what did you do with the baby? It was 10 days later and I was back at the mission and he told me he died. But I always question that, if he did really die or if he's still alive somewhere. Maybe he gave him up for adoption himself because he was my guardian.
He clearly set it all up, made arrangements for them to go. He knew what it was going to cost. He knew how long they'd be down there. But I think the Children's Aid Society, too, was run by the Catholic Church. They were all a part of a system.
Again, the amount of research they do is just absolutely spellbinding when it comes to, you know, cross-collaborating with so many different sources. This again, they're using the primary sources of the records from the schools, and they move on to the records from the RCMP. They actually start to be able to cross-collaborate and track down individuals themselves, and then they can find a couple people to go on testimony to talk about their first-hand accounts witnessing the incinerators themselves. This one is heavier. This is the first-hand account of someone who had witnessed the baby incinerators.
I can't remember if it was the next year or the same year that I seen that them nuns packing the baby down, 5 of us. We're not supposed to be down at the incinerator. And then one of them opened the door and the other one threw the baby in. It's pretty wild. I'm probably the only survivor. Well, I know I'm the only survivor of that group that's seen that. Just wait.
So fucked up, first off, but then like to put like recontextualize this and just imagine like the amount of work that has been happening to basically reveal and tell all these stories, to be able to provide evidence, create timelines, to be able to actually like get full lists of names and to be able to tell history properly. And then you get full on, again, politicians like the one I was just showing you before, Dallas Brody, who are just calling this all into question because they watched the Lauren Southern video. Or whoever the fuck that, you know, new white supremacist who was debating Sam Seder, or a Lauren Chen video, or, another person promoting their work, or even trying to do a light version of it like Destiny was doing, right? Where it's just like, oh, we have to call into question the fact that, yeah, where are the bodies? Why don't you dig up the bodies? What's going on? And then it's like, there's so much shit that has been, revealed at this point. Like, we're so far beyond people, or at least, at the very least, why don't you do your own research like you always hear people talk about? Why don't you actually look into this? I'll show you one more clip, and my apologies because I know a lot of this is really heavy, but this one is actually the part of the film that stunned me. Again, if you haven't checked it out, go watch the movie Sugarcane. I got permission from the director of the film to show you some of these clips. This is a former Grand Chief who is half white, half indigenous, and his wife is showing him that she got a DNA test to find out what his background is. He eventually got invited to go to the Vatican for part of the reconciliation process, where the Pope is going to apologize to Indigenous communities in Canada and speak firsthand about his own experience. And actually, it just floored me when you find out the reason why his DNA test turns out the way it does.
Just Ireland, which could have been...
No, darling. Here, and I'll explain it to you. We had the DNA test done, and it says 50% Ireland, 45% Indigenous, and 5% Scotland. So, that's got to say something.
Would come in the dorm to molest little kids. The brother who was a supervisor, he saw what was going on. He did nothing about it. And one of the worst things about it is when the bad priest was found out or reported, he just got moved to another parish, another residential school, and it continued on and on. you know, and before then we had no voice. We couldn't report to the police.
Yeah, no, there was, society wouldn't allow that.
That's right.
In those days, it was thought that a priest or brother who does wrong should be sent away, make a retreat, pray, go to confession, and change his life. After the 80s, I think, you know, the church accepted more psychology and began to understand, well, people with mental illness need to be removed from ministry, and it wasn't right, and it's a terrible, tragic 100 years. You say 3 generations, maybe 4 of.
It's probably 4 for me, yeah. My grandmother, she was abused at the mission and she tried to run away. I was also abused by a priest at the residential school. And I kept that a secret for about 30 years after I left. And my mother was abused by a priest. And that's how I was born.
So fucked up. So fucked up. Like, again, this documentary just floored me. If you hadn't already watched it, it's a difficult watch to get through end to end, but it's also incredibly powerful. And I know you won't believe this having seen that scene, but the end of it is actually kind of inspiring. Sugarcane. It's called Sugarcane. You can watch it, I believe, you can watch it online on the National Geographic's site. It got picked up by National Geographic, and I think it's being distributed by them right now. But yeah, again, like 4 generations of abuse. You know, my grandmother, my mother, me, telling their stories firsthand. And then again, you'll find politicians who not only have the fucking audacity to talk about how the whole thing is made up or a lie or something like that, but then to double down on that take and then to get self-righteous about it is also the most disgusting thing. Where rather than, you know, like he's got a really strong point there where he's like, for years we didn't have a voice. There was no National Geographic Academy Award nominated documentary being made on this. We were silenced. We were pushed out. People weren't talking about this at all. This was not an aspect of, you know, our day-to-day that people were going to even allow us to give our own testimonies about. So genuinely, it's also important to share that and to share their stories and to let people know the truth about it so that you don't get, you know, fucking weirdo freaks like the Lauren Southerns of the world or the Dallas Brodys of the world or the Sarah, whatever the fuck her name was, you know, talking to Sam Seder the other day about these topics. Like, the reality is just so much more horrifying. I got some follow-ups to the incredible Sam Seder versus 20, count them, 20, Jubilee MAGA Trump supporters. If you didn't see it, Daddy Sam went on Jubilee. Terrible, channel, this Jubilee. Typically what they do is they'll just do a premise where, like, queer folk have to defend their existence. It'll be like, one gay man talks to 20 homophobes and explains to them why he shouldn't be beat up. Or, like, one trans person talks to 10 cis people who hate trans people. And they have to, like, justify their entire existence before the eyes of the world. And you're just like, that's bad, terrible. But in this case, it was lovely because Sam Seder, again, has the patience of a god king. And as it was able to sit there as, you know, a whole bunch of different MAGA supporters and Republicans, many of them skewing much younger, were sitting there and provided their arguments as to why they think things like Social Security is bad, why they hate social safety nets, SNAP, welfare, all that kind of stuff, why they hate big government. And then, you know, Sam was able to very calmly and I'd say reasonably explain to them that, in fact, fact, I think you have been misled. That's not how this works. For example, there is not a government agency that pays taxes. That wouldn't make sense because they are paid by taxes. So you like, again, the premise of how you think the world works is skewed, but that's just not reality. Until along came this individual here, and things just took a turn for the Hitler. Because she just ramped up the whole, like, isn't America about, you know, Christian Western values? Isn't diversity bad? Can't we just, like, she went real hardcore right away. And so there's the thing in Jubilee where when you're watching someone do this shit, everyone who doesn't like what they're hearing holds up a flag. And she got a lot right away, especially by the people who weren't white in the circle, who I'm sure, once again, it's one of those things where, you know, not all conservatives are Nazis. There's going to be conservatives who are just like, I want sound fiscal policy, or conservatives who are just like, I want limited government because I've been tricked into believing that government is bad. Not the ones who are just always going to consistently be like, I want the superior white race to subjugate the other races, and that is like, that's where she's at. So she obviously was not as popular as maybe some of the other contestants, let's just say that. So here's a quick recap if you're unaware.
And identity.
White. So your argument is that
I'll put on the flags too, just because everyone who's been playing Jubilee clips has been getting roasted. So we got to put on our copyright claim flags.
Has been the dominant culture.
Just to be
and
clear,
we're not letting people assimilate to that. We're saying you should keep your culture, and this is why our culture is so divided.
Your argument is that Trump is good for those who want a dominant white European culture.
I mean, that is what America is. It's rooted in European identity and Christian values. That's what it has been. Would you really disagree with that? What is it then, if that's not the identity of America?
Well, I think the identity of
For the
America...
majority of time, America's been a country. You don't think that's been the identity?
Well, actually, no. I think actually the identity of America has been, you know, for better or for worse, a melting pot in that regard.
Yeah, maybe since like the 1960s. Even then, like, even we had this idea of a melting pot literally means assimilation too. It means melting. It means you're assimilating to the dominant culture. Is that not what melting means? And now instead we're saying there's something wrong with xenophobia.
Culture. No. I mean, look, I got to be honest with you. Like, you and I have a fundamental disagreement. We will never see eye to eye on this. It's a choice. And people, I think what you're expressing, though, is really what the Trump movement at its heart is about. And I think that's problematic.
I disagree. I don't think Trump's like anywhere close to being a Christian nationalist. That's ridiculous. Like, Trump's basically a Democrat from like 15 years ago when it comes to social issues.
So you don't think that he's conservative enough for you?
Oh, definitely. Nowhere close. No.
He's not xenophobic enough for you?
No, he's trying to pour a bunch of H-1Bs. Are you kidding?
Right. Oh, so you want to get them out too? Yeah. No.
So you can see a lot of people are holding up the next flags that weren't as happy with, you know, Ava Braun taking her time on the stage. So I'm sure I'm not going to be spoiling the surprise here for anybody at this point who hasn't realized that, in fact, she herself is an immigrant. If you didn't know, she's a Canadian. And I guess this is now the time when I have to do the thing. We're sorry. We're sorry. We're sorry. I don't know why we keep doing this. I don't know why this keeps happening. Why so many of the white supremacists and the, you know, pundit class of Americans are Canadians. You know, you're Lauren Chen, Lauren Southern, Jordan Peterson, Stephen Crowder, Gavin McInnes, Stephen Molyneux. It just goes on and on and on. It's almost as if, you know, they start out doing kind of like this shit here in Canada and then realize they would like a much larger audience of people to be able to buy up all of their racist Hitler claptrap, and then move on to the good old US of A, where they either pretend to be Americans or they do self-deprecating humor about how terrible and inferior Canadians are, like Stephen Crowder likes to do. But in her case, she genuinely is a little bit more, let's just say, Nazi. Because, like, when that whole thing got exposed, I made a post about it, effectively saying that... Ooh, where did I hide it? Oh, sorry, back here. So it turns out she was an immigrant from Canada. Formerly Ontario-based Canadian-American Sarah Stock joined Rebel News in 2022, where she worked behind the scenes before reporting on the streets of Toronto in 2024. Now, Sarah responded to me, and she was like, "How dare you?" She actually said, "I was literally born an American citizen. Being born abroad does not make you an immigrant. My ancestors came to America in the early 1700s. Now, I don't, without confirmation, know 100% where she's going with this. Like, I don't know if she means that she was born in like a U.S. base or military base in Canada, like Ted Cruz was, which technically would make him an American citizen. You're still a naturalized born citizen, technically born within the United States, if that was the case. I don't know if she was a dual citizen, and then either renounced her Canadian citizenship, or if she doesn't consider there to be a difference between Canada and America at all. She sees the world in a lot more kind of black and white terms, and Jen just believes that she is just effectively part of the superior master race of colonizers, and she actually goes as far as calling herself a settler, which is also kind of wild. Your ancestors were immigrants back then. You're an immigrant now, dumbass. Nope, settlers are not immigrants either. Settlers are actually worse than immigrants, Lamau. But anyways, yeah, I have no idea. I mean, at this point, I think we should all go full birther. You know, I mean, if they were willing to do it to Obama, we should be doing it to her. Until we see a birth certificate, all right, I'm just going to assume that she is a filthy Canadian communist insurgent trying to take good jobs away from hardworking Americans. You know, American patriots, guess what? Illegal immigrants, communist Canadians are coming into your country to try and steal your jobs. You know, you want to be a YouTuber, a podcaster. You want to work for Elijah Schaefer, the fucking white supremacist. You want to get on his show. Then you know, you might have a little bit more trouble as long as Canadians are taking your jobs. I mean, it's pretty tough, but it's true. Now, I don't know if this going super viral freaked her the fuck out, because she must have spoken to Rebel News. She got that shit removed. It's gone. It's like it never happened. I just noticed this today, by the way. And then I was like, wow, okay. So maybe we were all wrong then. She didn't work for Rebel News. She's not Canadian, actually. She maybe we were misreporting it. Although the URL is still a URL. There's still journalist _Sarah_stock. It's still within the Google search results. It takes you to this page where everything has been effectively deleted. This is what happens when you tell Rebel News right away, can you please take my information down? And they do that, but it hasn't scrubbed itself completely from the internet. So you could probably go on the Wayback Machine if you still want to see it or stuff like that. I mean, in addition to the fact that like her videos are still up on the YouTube channel. So this is her in a trip to Brampton, Ontario to find out if international students have a right to stay in Canada.
Disrespectful.
As an American, I don't know why she cares.
Like our parents, like if we did that, like it's disrespectful. Like, you know, to like Canadians, we'd think in our head, I don't know, like the stuff I see, they don't even care.
Because if I were to immigrate to another country, I would try to fit in. I would try to assimilate to that culture, right?
Yeah.
Like American. If you were, say, a Canadian who moved to America and wanted to tell everyone you were American and that you hated immigrants, that would make sense. Also, if you go into that like viral tweet that I had where I basically exposed her for being a Canadian immigrant, the replies, if you ever want to see the manifestations of like the Nazi right, holy shit, so many people that were like, you fucking dumbass, she's white. No, she's white. This is the kind, no, it doesn't count. No, she's a Christian. She's a white Christian. This doesn't count. Here's an actual passage from the fucking Declaration of Independence that says white. It's right here. It's written in words. This is not an immigrant. I was like, yeah, okay, well, I'm glad you're all just saying it out loud, because when you're talking about xenophobia, or you're worried about immigrants taking jobs, or you're worried about people coming from other countries, you're talking about how much melanin they have. I mean, she's very clear about that, right? She's like, no, I don't think Trump goes far enough. He wants to, you know, bring in people who can code from India on H-1B visas, and I mean, that's not good. No. There's only one kind of immigrant is what we're looking for, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they were not promised anything, so I think the protest is, what do I say, worthless.
Before coming here, they should plan that what kind of study they want to do so that they can be secure in the future. Like personally, I am doing police course in this college, so I'm secure. I can get job in the police line.
A lot of
the Wayback Machine does in fact have it covered. Oh, you are correct. Thanks, Igloo. Formerly Ontario-based Canadian-American Sarah Stock joined Rebel News. So I guess, yeah, it's been recorded on the internets, but now it's gone. She disappeared. She has become Americanized. Even though, again, she hasn't had all her videos deleted off Rebel News. She made a lot of content for them. Torontonians share their thoughts on Justin Trudeau. It's a message for Trudeau. Should viral anti-Hamas billboard trucks be criminalized? Do Canadians want more or less immigration? Jagmeet Singh is still delaying an election. Take Back Canada. Anti-mass immigration protests. And it's kind of funny that like you were so heavily involved in the anti-immigration movement here in Canada and then moved to a separate country as an immigrant to then become a part of the anti-immigration movement there. I feel like you just hate people who aren't white. That's it. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're an immigrant yourself. It's more just like, are they or are they not white is what you kind of care about.
Take back Canada! Take back Canada! Take back Canada! Take back Canada!
Come here and change ours into something completely different.
If you come here, if you make Canada your home, you need to assimilate, you need to learn the language, you need to adapt to the culture and the way of life. It's that's how it is, and that's how it's gonna stay.
I love that, by the way, when people, sometimes who have no idea how to actually finish sentences are just like, y'all need to learn the language, be able to speak like we speak. Sir, hold on, wait a minute, something's not right.
Immigration and even illegal immigration in Canada. Let's hear from some of them, see what they have to say.
So obviously,
not the biggest of protests, I gotta say. We got one fuck Trudeau flag right here. We demand our future back. End corporate mass immigration. So they definitely tying a couple ideas together in one.
Come out and help stop this kind of madness of unabridged or unchecked immigration. So that's why I'm
unchecked immigration.
They're building the country's destroyed.
His brother talked about immigration 15 years ago.
What I'm saying is we cannot deal with the 2.5 million people right now.
Working, and there is absolutely no reason that we should be made to.
There are dozens of us. Dozens.
Endure it.
What do you think about this issue of mass immigration? I know a lot of people are.
Oh, I think it's terrible. I'm an immigrant myself. I'm not against immigration.
You can't make this shit up. Why does it always... This gets to the core of the issue, really. Again, I thought it was funny enough that she was just going off, as a Canadian in America to Sam Seder sitting there talking about how America and American culture, it is not a melting pot, and immigrants are destroying the country, and that she hates the H-1B visa program because it's bringing too many non-whites into the nation and all this kind of stuff. And she herself is an immigrant, but she's not the wrong kind of immigrant, right? That's what it comes down to. And it's like, what do you think about the immigration problem in Canada? Oh, I hate it. As an immigrant myself, I gotta say, I don't hate immigration per se. We've just got the wrong kind, if you know what I mean. So anyways, she used to produce a lot of this kind of content. She ended up moving to the United States, where she no longer works for Rebel News. She now works for Elijah Schaffer and his program. But oh wow, she did a lot of content. That's all 47 videos. Huh. Unburden yourself with a new Kamala Harris t-shirt. I wonder if this is when she moved to the United States.
Joe Biden has endorsed his Vice President Kamala Harris as the new Democrat nominee. We'll see
No,
what
she's
happens, but
still
Kamala
in
loves to use a
Toronto
phrase
there,
to
I
see what
think.
can be unburdened by what has been. If you want to be unburdened by Kamala Harris, please head over to rebelnewsstore.com and get this t-shirt.
Shameless. Shameless. So I did want to say a couple things. She's directly calling out one of the other people who was there, the one who was sitting behind Sam Seder, I believe, holding up the red flag almost immediately when she started getting real Nazi-like, and being called out by other conservatives who are like, quote, conservative Noel, who's on the Jubilee episode, is angry about Sarah Stock's points and doubling down, denying race exists, calling Europe godless, praising non-white nations for being culturally Christian, and saying anyone who isn't native can go back to Europe. Is that what this clip says?
Under an American identity, but not under a race. And unless you're native, you are an immigrant. You are a form of immigrant. You are not native to this land. So many for following.
Or if you were the descendant of people who were brought over forcibly, by the way, as well. That's something that I myself make the mistake of leaving out. People who were brought over to Canada or the United States as slaves and are the descendant of slaves. Yeah.
Others, including her, said, well, you can go back to Mexico. I'm indigenous. Am I also Mexican? Yes. Do I also have family in Mexico? Yes. I'm indigenous. Where do you want me to go? Like, I'm from here. this is where my ancestry traces back to. So why don't you go back to Europe? Okay, shared European culture. Let's follow that logic down. Europe.
She never said what she's being accused of saying there. She's trying to throw your own logic back at you. She's effectively saying that, like, if you're trying to talk to her in that regard, then shouldn't she say the same thing to you? Maybe you should just go back to Europe. It's again, to try and make you think.
Europe is a godless, secular society. You aren't really allowed to wear religious symbols in school. For example, in France, Napoleon aided to a lot of the secularization of France and Europe. Europe has some of the largest abortion rates. Europe is not a godly.
I feel like all the conservatives are like, man, it's got to be a rough scene, right? So if you happen to be, say, like a Catholic or a Christian and you're fundamentalist, or you are very just deeply religious and that's part of your core, you're like, I guess I got to align with one of two options, right? I don't want to be with the liberals. They seem godless. So conservatives, Republicans, I'm going to have to go on that team. And then you're sitting there in a room full of fellow conservatives or Trump supporters or MAGA supporters, and then boom, up comes the Aryan princess who sits down immediately beside Sam Seder to talk about how Trump isn't racist enough for her. And then you're like, oh God. So I got to be on the same team as the Nazis. That kind of sucks. And I got to be honest, I have a lot of complaints about the left. That's not one of them. I don't usually go to, like, you know, a Democratic Socialist meeting, or, you know, we're doing like a food program or something like that, where I'm just like, really does suck when the Nazis show up. That just never happens. It's not something I need to think about. If Nazis were there, they would effectively start a fight. So that's not really something you got to think too much about. With the anti-fascists, you know, the anti-fascists are usually kind of anti-fascists, that whole thing. But yeah, I mean, I guess if you were just there because you wanted to talk about religious beliefs and you know, good old-fashioned Christian conservative values, but then it turns out those kind of overlap with the pretty hardcore racists, then yeah, that's not great either.
Society. America is by far way more culturally Christian than Europe. So really, you want European culture in America? Let's see how that plays out. You're saying you're against abortion, but yet you want European culture that is fine with lots of abortions. It makes no sense. Then if we look at Latin countries, African countries, Asian countries, if we look at other countries, they're actually largely against abortion. They're actually very culturally Christian and culturally conservative. So I really don't understand this flawed, like,
I don't believe in totality that's true. I think a lot of people have weird misconceptions when they come to religion and countries. And I know Japan is pretty secular, for example. China is pretty secular as well. There's a very large Christian population in South Korea. I do not know in North Korea what the predominant religion is. Indonesia is Muslim, if I'm not mistaken. It's probably one of the largest Muslim nations in the entire planet. But again, it's one of those things where I don't know if we could really break it down by culture to culture to start being like, well, America could get infected with the European Christian conservatism. That could be a problem. It's Indonesia and Malaysia are two of the largest Muslim population countries. Fair dues. I think, honestly, as much as I want to be like, let them fight, you know, it's you know, anti-abortion, conservative versus white nationalist conservative, blah, blah, blah. It's also just kind of sad to me because, like, it just seems like, so how are y'all supposed to find, you know, common ground with another group that obviously actively hates you because you're not white? Like, if you look at the comment by Sarah Stock, Spaniards brought Christianity to her ancestors. Before that, they were performing pagan rituals and human sacrifice. But sure, Europeans are godless. All this kind of shit. Like, yeah, I mean, she's gonna do a racism. It's gonna be more racism, and that's unfortunately just where all of that is going to leave itself. Hey, I got a proposal. I know you usually think of left as godless, sinless communists, and I'm not religious, so I'll be clear about this, but I do want to have a proposal for people. While not religious myself, I do not want to force you to have to choose what you want or not want to believe. I think it's totally fine if you want to be a Christian, if if you want to be a Catholic. I do not want to impose my beliefs, which are that I'm not a Christian or Catholic, upon you. I think you have a right to practice your religion, any religion, in fact, as long as it is not directly harming other people. I don't think you should be allowed to have, say, some kind of cult that you invented that allows you to be all powerful and you now have a right to commit crimes like, you know, mass murder or something like that. I think there should be obviously restrictions, but yeah, I just don't think that you should also get special privileges for having that religion. But I don't think anyone should be forced to have to believe in one direction or another. You shouldn't be forced to have my beliefs. I shouldn't be forced to have your beliefs. And I think that would make for a much healthier society for both parties. And so how about that? I also abhor racism, the idea of racial hierarchies and white supremacists and people like her who are effectively just trying to dominate the planet because she thinks she's part of some fairy tale mythical master race, which does not exist whatsoever. It's actually absurd for her to actually propose that and try to push that on other people, especially when she is effectively part of a colonial project on stolen land. That is actively true. So that part is also pretty wild to me. So again, I don't think you should be forced to have beliefs that you don't want to have. I think you should be free to practice religion if you so choose. I think there's a lot of people who do and can practice religion and do so without any calls or violence. The vast majority, actually, most people who are religious, in fact, aren't doing it because they want to suddenly give devotion to a god through some kind of fucked up shit. So yeah, that sounds good. Right? There you go. Everyone can be happy. The show was great yesterday, Lance. Good job using drama for good. I use drama for good? Which drama? I forget. There's too many dramas these days. Thank you very much for subbing, though. Aussie Call Me Plant Lady. I appreciate that. Very kind of you. Christian are mandated to convert the heathens around them. Some are, some aren't. There's a lot of different sects. There's so many. God, I mean, there's the Christian Scientists. Which one are the ones that are cool with the gays? You can have like lesbian priests and stuff like that. There's Catholics. There's Lutherans. There's lots of different forms. I think again that if you are trying to impose your will upon other people, then you shouldn't have a right to do that. I don't think you should get tax exempt or any kind of special exemption for being religious. I could invent my own religion now. Do I get to be tax exempt? Yes, Unitarians. There's that too. For Methodists are generally pretty chill. They have the gay pastors. So it's the Methodists. Okay, so the Methodists are the cool ones. The Episcopalians, they're very progressive Anglicans. Okay, well, there you go. Unitarians can also be gay. See, there's some fun ones. A Unitarian Universalist. Don't forget the Mormons. Yeah, I mean, I used to talk so much shit about Mormons because theirs is probably one of the silliest and most racist revisionist versions. Well, I mean, it's all kind of silly. A lot of it is made up, but the Mormons were one of the silliest ones. And I got to agree with like Matt Stone and Trey Parker though. I've met Mormons. Like I've been Mormonized. When I was in Japan, I had one of the Mormons who have to do their whole, like, you got to go to another country for how many years? 2 years when you turn like 18 or 19 and try to convert as many people as possible. And I guess I was the only person that in the train at the time looked like I spoke English. So he tried to do the pitch. Like, have you heard of Ezekiel? Have you brought in Nephi into your heart and things like that? And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Is this like a Dungeons and Dragons thing? It sounds like a Dungeons and Dragons thing. It is odd to see another white person just dressed in a white shirt with a black tie, standing there talking to me about things I've never heard of. But unfortunately, it did not convert me to Mormonism. But friendliest people. Mormons are unbelievably, like, they're friendly to almost like a fault. I have no idea what part of Mormonism makes them so genuinely like, oh, I'm sorry, can I help you? Okay, I just hope you have a wonderful day, and I'm hoping to help you out. It's kind of neat because I've met religious people who are not happy. And you can tell the religion is clearly, a factor in that. It's making them shittier. Schumer caved. I know, we reported on it. Fucking feckless, useless, spineless, and pointless. Apparently, this guy, the one who was saying that governments and government institutions hire people of color so they can get tax breaks, is a failed actor. So it's the failed actor to right-wing pipeline. Before graduating this year from Evergreen Valley, Padilla was asked to participate in a statewide Spanish-language short film campaign called Gracias Maestros, produced by California Lottery, which featured a series of educators and students they've helped. Padilla, a Mexican-American native of San Jose, saw an opportunity to express his gratitude towards his mentor. I don't think I would be able to write in a letter, Padilla said. This was a way to show her what she's done for me. The best thing that I've heard is you take an opportunity that other people aren't going for. I took it right away, and I like the idea. Gracias Maestros, thinking of a teacher, a documentary about my passion. It was a great way to talk about different issues, and that's what I wanted to cover. Being a filmmaker for minority groups, there's so many issues. And yeah. And now debating Sam Seder about why governments have DEI programs to make money and save money on taxes. Also, I find this one also hilarious in this long line of why are the right going so anti-multicultural. I don't know if you saw Congressman Brandon Gill. He is for Texas 26 and 119th Congress class president, fighting on the judiciary GOP, had a statement. Multiculturalism will tear our country apart. Multiculturalism. And as you can see in the photo below you, he is in a, what some might describe, multicultural marriage. He happens to be married to a non-white woman, Dinesh D'Souza's daughter, to be precise. And yeah, it's weird. I don't know if he was announcing his divorce or if, like, you know, shit's not going great in the marriage, and then he decided to take it out in you know, Twitter. Fucking hell, you know, the old ball and chain. Multiculturalism will tear this country apart. I don't know if that's it, but yeah, I don't totally know what's going on. So people are living on Twitter at Schumer. Good, as they should be. What was the last thing he said? Like, hold on. Schumer.
People are aroused. I haven't seen people so aroused in a very, very long time. What did he say?
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Primary every single one of them. Get rid of them. I don't know what America, I don't know what to say. It sucks. I mean, you know, I wish I could tell you that here in Canada we don't have that problem. We certainly don't have completely useless liberals who basically just stand in the face of the advancement of far right you know, authoritarian regimes and sit there and either are collaborators or are just performative nothings, are completely, you know, spineless and useless. Yeah, I don't know what that's like. It just seems to be a problem with most Western democracies, you know. Again,
don't trust the liberals. They will betray you.
It sucks. It fucking sucks. It's the worst. It's terrible. And honestly, you know, you sit there being like, well, this is scary. It looks like the conservatives are fast rising. They're about to get a majority. This Pierre guy is doing MGTOW. He's effectively siding with red pill ideology. He's speaking at residential school denialism, you know, organizations. He is pushing a lot of extremism, and he's actually shaking hands with far right militia members. This is really frightening. What do we got on the other end? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, nothing. They're just, they're stern words. Cringe videos, more of the same, neoliberal austerity. When they go low, we go high. It's great. This is the, you know, I hate that idea when you're sitting there and then they're pretty much like, well, we hear you, but things are bad. They're terrible. And I think all of us are now asking, who is going to do something about this? You. It's your job. That's why. Did you not want the job? Don't you make like $200,000 a year? That's a really good salary. You make like a nurse's salary. Come on, it's your fucking job. I know sometimes it's not all fun and games. It's not all ribbon cutting and accepting, you know, kickbacks and watching super PACs just grow into the tune of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. Sometimes it's a little bit scary. Sometimes you got to be the opposition. Because sometimes the other side, if they're not going to play by the rules, if they don't care, if they're effectively just going to dismantle government for the benefit of billionaires, will they assume authoritarian power and the whole thing falls into like a fascistic hellscape, then yeah, You're the ones that we kind of put in front to be like, well, someone has to stop that. Not to be there and to be like, I hear you. And you know what I'm feeling? That the people are aroused. They're aroused. I've never seen them so aroused. Yes, poor choice of words, but whatever you got to do to get there. And now, do something, please. Get out there and do something. And instead, it's just like, so we don't want to, disrupt too much. I mean, we need decorum. If one side doesn't have decorum, the whole thing will spiral into madness. So one side has to basically, do the thing.
Don't let this happen to you. Go to serfscoffee.com to order the only end-to-end owned indigenous coffee company that delivers blood-free, conflict-free, and cruelty-free beans right to your door. 0% of people who drink serfscoffee.com have exploded spontaneously. By ordering right now, you get 10% off plus free shipping, and it's the best way to enjoy delicious coffee while not exploding. That's serfscoffee.com, serfscoffee.com.
Hey, if you'd like to unlock secret bonus episodes as well as uncensored content, go to patreon.com/theserfs. This show is produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Political Puppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demel, Travis McClinton, Trincel, Words Greenwood, with additional support coming from all of these amazing human beings right here.